understanding who you are, trying to get.
Hey, welcome. It's Social Work Sunday Tea. I am Shaquera Houston. It's a great day to be alive and well, right? It is October 29th, it's Sunday. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We got some very, very good things in store for this podcast. We're gonna dive right in. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we want to talk about these things, and we want to get in tune. And we have a special guest here. If you'd like to introduce yourself, it'd be greatly appreciated. Welcome to Social Work Sunday Tea.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shaquera, for having me. Welcome, everybody. My name is Shaquera Robinson. I am the CEO and founder of Shaquera Story, Domestic Violence Consulting and Coaching. I am a survivor turned advocate activist who is very fierce and prominent in this work and making sure that survivors and victims across the state of Massachusetts and abroad are really represented in a more equitable way. And so thank you so much for having me to have this intimate conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for saying yes. I was saying that behind stage, saying thank you for saying yes, because it's a touchy subject, and a lot of people, they don't want to, as far as like be exposed or, share their story, but it's also strength in telling your story. It's more so like a testimony too. And to telling people, hey, you're not alone, so what is your thoughts when someone says domestic violence?
I think just in you saying that in this moment, it reminds me when we do workshop sessions and trainings, we seem to get a lot of likes when we show a certain slide and it has a variation of women and children and men from all different walks of life. And we simply ask the question, what does domestic violence look like? And people are always stunned because, there's this stigma or this fixed narration that it's a Black girl's problem or Black woman's problem, when domestic violence can happen to any one of us. It happens to professionals. It happens to, the layperson. It happens to educators. It happens to, people in law enforcement. It can happen to anyone. And so when I hear it, it reminds me of trauma, generational trauma. It reminds me of the social constructs that hold us binded to the traumas and experiences that happen to us. Like we said before earlier, behind the scenes, domestic violence is one of those topics, those issues that is not really talked about a lot because there's no way to, perfectly commercialize it or to make it look pretty. It is very much an ugly situation. But the best parts that we see at Shaquera's Story is helping folks get to the other side of the abusive experiences that they have gone through. So there is beauty in it and on the other side. And also seeing people go through the process of, being the victim to becoming the victor, and really honing in on their voices and really taking control of where they want to see this go in terms of what they're expecting their outcomes to be.
Yeah, definitely. We entitled our stories Untold.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to dive right in, what is your experience with domestic violence? I know it's probably someone out there today, right now, as we speak, that's going through those motions of domestic violence, either verbal, physical, emotional abuse, and they don't really know what to do or who to turn to or, what to say, things like that. And so, like I said, it's more of a testimony for you because you survived, right? You're victorious of, surviving this experience, this human experience, traumatic experience.
Mhm.
So I would love for you to, tell your story, and, like how much, so you're a voice, right? You're the advocate of regarding revolving around domestic violence. And so I would love for you to dive in and tell us your story of what you experienced.
Yeah. Well, first, on behalf of domestic abuse advocates, I want to say that we have changed the term from domestic violence to domestic abuse, because
Mhm.
domestic violence would infer that it has to only be some form of physical violence where
Yeah.
we would, determine it to be domestic violence. The
Yeah.
reality of it is, as you said before, it is emotional, it is mental, it is economically, it's cultural, it's so many different aspects to it. And so when we label it as what it is and call it what it is, domestic abuse, we're addressing all the issues that could be where we're filling and checking those boxes, where we're
Yeah.
saying how we identify with the issue. As far as I'm concerned, I am a survivor first of childhood sexual assault. When I was a young girl, I was molested quite a few times by individual males that I know, members of my family, and also too, I remember graduating from middle school, and I was
Mhm.
walking with my cousins, going to spend my little money that I got from graduation,
Mhm.
and you see these two guys coming in. Of course, I say I'm older than what I was, which was shame on me. I believe I said I was 16, and I think I was like 13, turning 14 at the time. And long story short, the individual ended up meeting a family member. He showed the family member his ID to show proof that he was old enough to talk to me, and eventually ended up raping me. And so there was no rape kit for me. There was no 911 call for me. There was no rape crisis, advocate. And there was no advocacy for me. When that happened to me, it was a secret that I kept until I was 33 years old. And I
Mhm.
told my mother when I was 33, and she had no words for me. And I don't think it's because she was insensitive to the fact. I think it was because it was reminding her of her experience. And I'm not here to tell her story, but
Right.
also too, how do you address something that went unnoticed for so long? Where do you start, right? And so in
Yeah.
hindsight, I'm thinking back and saying to myself, I don't even think she knew what to say to me. So
Yeah.
here we are, fast forward, and right during the same time that I told her I was going through domestic violence at the time. And it was a week before I had my last child, who is the, child of the individual who was abusing me. And I remember saying to her, there's some things I'm going to have to get out of, and you might have to take my kids. And so thinking early on, like I could possibly never come out of this in so many different ways, or I can end up behind bars because of the way my mindset was in terms of how do I get out? Because for me, there was no outlet. There was no nowhere to turn to until I eventually, called 911 that day in 2017. And from there, it has been a nonstop roller coaster with me in the litigation abuse. Litigation abuse is when the individual, in my case, or any case for this matter, uses the court system, the legal system, to continue to victimize and harm the individual on the other side. And
Right.
so for me, it's the constant false police reports, the constant allegations of me being the abuser and having to fight that. And so along the way of doing that, I ended up meeting or being assigned to a student attorney at Northeastern University. And I always say that was my saving grace, because when my name went into the system as a victim of domestic violence who has a standing restraining order, who is now being accused of domestic violence and now having to go back to the same court that issued the 209A for me, my name goes into this database, and Northeastern University picked up my case. And when
Mhm.
they did, I was introduced to a then student attorney, Daniel Bateson. And Daniel Bateson was a white male, very well privileged, different lifestyle and background than me. But that didn't deter him from working with a girl from the ghetto, from the hood, who didn't understand the legal system at all. I just knew. I called 911, I asked for help, and here I am. And so
Yeah.
he told me flat out, I just want you to be honest with me. Tell me the truth. What happened? What do you see from this? What are you looking to get from this? And from there, he made it very clear that we are about to face an uphill battle. He told me up front what I was dealing with, what the ramifications of it would look like, and the possible outcomes. And I had to be ready to face those things, right? There's a chance that this individual may get away with it, because in the state of Massachusetts, domestic violence is considered a misdemeanor. And so until these things continue to pile up, and become this combustion of what could be a homicide, or maybe something severe closely to a homicide, then we just
Yeah.
have a case of continuance. And so I was aware of these things very early on, and it got worse for me. And so from there, Dan was on his way graduating, and so I met my great friend Margot Lindauer, who became my attorney. And
Okay.
from the short time that she took on my case with Dan, they realized one student attorney for my case was not enough. And so when the next round of student attorneys was assigned to my case, I was assigned two. And for the sake of their names, because I have not been given consent to use their names in this capacity, I'll just
Yeah.
say these women were phenomenal in
Yeah.
making sure that I knew all my legal rights, right? And that I knew what advocacy looked like for me, because the way they said it to me was, this case will go the way you want it to, in terms of, we can only fight for the truths and the facts. And so making sure that I was being honest again, and giving all the information and details, and also too taking these details into consideration for myself. So now I became my own attorney with these student attorneys helping me. So I'm learning as they're learning, and that
Yeah.
just fire in me. And so with that, with telling my story, I met a lot of phenomenal people who
Yeah.
stand tall on their shoulders because of their support to this day. My case started in 2017. Here we are in 2023, where, as you see, I am now a CEO. So I went from a grassroots, just telling my story,
Yeah.
just to make sure that people knew that I was here and this happened to me, and that I wasn't going to stand for it. Because so many times, Shaki, I would go to court and I would see woman after woman, girl after girl coming into court by themselves, no attorneys, and
Yeah.
they're asking for a restraining order, a harassment order, just some form of legal protection, and being turned away. They didn't have enough evidence. They didn't say the right thing. They didn't say anything. They just cried. Or, maybe there was a language barrier where they didn't really know how to respond because they couldn't comprehend the questions that they were being asked. Not once did I see a victim witness advocate stand with these people to make sure you understand what is happening to you. It's
Yeah.
only when you get to trial that the judge will ask you, are you aware of what is happening? Have you been, have you talked to somebody about what is about to take place, what you're about to
Mhm.
agree to? It's only when you get to that point is someone advocating for you. And
Yeah.
that's what caused me to want to say, you know what, I got to do something for somebody else. And so that's how
Yeah.
we started.
Wow. Wow. What was your mindset as far as going through these motions, right? I call it waves, right? The mental capacity. I listen, by you even talking about it, I mean, I'm having an image,
Yeah.
right? In my head, like, oh my goodness, like the mental capacity, the strength in that, right? And I think it's so much strength in what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what was the mental capacity? Because some people be like, you know what, forget it.
Yeah.
I give up. That's okay. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Because a lot of people they don't want to, they don't want to deal with it, and they don't have the strength to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because it can be overwhelming and too much. So what was your mindset when it came down to that? Like,
For me, it was always, I need to be here for my kids.
yeah.
And then also, too, the child that I have in common with the abuser, I just knew that was going to change the way he saw me, the way he thought about me as a woman, as a mother. I thought that was going to change his mind, and he would have some sort of newfound respect or love for me to some capacity. And that didn't work, right? And so once I realized that, right after she was born, I promise you, I started praying and asking God, if you get me out of this, I'm gonna do something. I don't know
Yeah.
what, but I'm gonna do something. But
Yeah.
the main thing for me was, first, it was always the safety of my children. I will die first before you do anything to my children. Because it
Right.
got to the point where it was no longer, it was never about the child we have in common. It was about what he would say was to divide and conquer. So his
Mm.
goal, as he would say to me, was to take everything I had and bring me down to nothing, because then I would learn to respect him. And so when I started to realize and realize what I was dealing with, at one point, Shakia, I had to see it through, okay, if this was my student and my
Mhm.
student had a mental health issue, because my background is in education, what
Right.
would I be looking for? And I started to really pay attention to these things and these cues. And it was just the things that he would say. It was the type of mom that I was. I was too giving. I was too this. I was too that. Who gets up and makes breakfast after just being knocked out? And, all the little things that he would say to try to break me down. And so I took those things as if when you hear people say, I took the bricks that was thrown at me and built with them. And so I
Yeah.
realized what I was dealing with. And I realized if something were to happen to me, the state will give him custody of my daughter. And so I now had to remove me, all of my emotions and all of my things from it, and really keep in the forefront. I have to be here for these kids.
Yeah.
Whether it meant showing up every time for court or whatever the case was, I had to be there. I had to be there. I had to give my voice, because on the criminal side, that was a given. It was very black and white what was happening. But on the probate side, he walked into a courtroom with his then girlfriend, who's now his wife, and she faked to be me and said, "We're here for Planned Parenting time." And so now it's time to go in front of the judge, and all of a sudden I disappear. And so because he started that case first, whatever he was asking for, the judge would take that into consideration. So for
Wow.
3 years in a probate matter, I had to represent myself for 3 years. Had to be the one that was investigated through DCF, although he was the one that was found to be neglect. It was always me that they were watching. And so I always knew that they were looking for me to do something different, say
Right.
something different, have a different narrative. My story never changed because I was always telling the truth.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it was first making sure that I'm here for my children, because I don't trust nobody outside of me with my babies.
Right.
And then on top of that is, when you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna show you twice that I can do it. And so
Yeah.
when he kept saying to me, "Oh, you don't know this system," I know the system because he's been through it his whole life. So I
Mm.
was going up against something that he knew, like he knew his name. And so with that, I still had my student attorneys asking me certain questions and making sure I understood certain terminology. So it got to a point where we were in court one day after an hour-long hearing about my restraining order. And my then student attorney, Dan, says to me, after I asked him a question, he goes, "I think you should study law." And
Mm.
at this time, I'm struggling to maintain my job as an educator.
Yeah.
Eventually got fired from that because I'm choosing to go to
Yeah.
court and fight and mitigate on my own behalf. So long story short, I ended up going to school for criminal justice, and I know the system a little bit better than he think I do today.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And so I just want to go backwards a little bit,
Mhm.
how, when the abuse started, right?
Yeah.
Because I have clients, my clients that are experience domestic abuse.
Mhm.
Um they what you said was, I want to get them to respect me.
That's right.
And I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So what does respect look like for the individual that's causing harm?
Mhm.
And so they will say, not going back and forth with him,
Mhm.
um, trying to belittle him, don't make no more much money,
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
client that kind of like reduce her hours to
Mhm.
maintain this level of, I don't want you to make more money than me. I
Yeah.
don't want to make more money. And out of fear, doing things, answering the phone, turning on locations,
Yeah.
like things like that. But when you said that, the level of respect. And so, I always ask, well, how was childhood for them?
Mhm.
What did that look like for them? And when you said that he was been in the, he'd been in the system,
Mhm.
and he knew the system. So he experienced that in his life, and he thought that was a thing to do, as far as, this is what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the only thing I know is right. It's only right. So I
Yeah.
don't care what you say, it's right.
Yeah. Statistics and data show that 1 in every 14 to 1 in every 15 children will witness domestic violence in their lifetime.
Mhm.
I am the child, I'm number 6 of my mother's children. I did not see it in the household that I grew up in, although it happened. My
Yeah.
father was the abuser in my situation with my mom during her pregnancy with me, before her pregnancy with me, and after, which is what made her flee from where she was to here. But with that being said, he also witnessed it. So he lived in a household where it happened. And so for me, I didn't see it firsthand, but I did see it in my neighborhood. I saw it in, the people who lived next door and across the street in the same building, different people in my family. So it wasn't, I was what you would consider a secondary or vicarious victim of
Mhm.
domestic abuse. And
Yeah.
so when you grow up in it, in any situation, any traumatic experience, and there is no one there to cultivate a learning experience that teaches you right from wrong and what consequences look like, and what consent is. When someone says no, you stop. From a little kid, when you learn that, that
Yeah.
starts to resonate, and it does something. It manifests differently in everybody.
Yeah.
I can't speak to what he took from his childhood from what he did not. But what I can say is, a lot of what he would do, if I was to do a certain thing, like during my pregnancy, experiencing the abuse, I would go to the hospital. They would send me home and say, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to slow down. And, I wouldn't ever disclose, well, I'm actually being abused in any type of capacity. And so after going to the hospital by myself and coming back home and trying to cook the food and wash the dishes and do that, his response would be the gaslighting. Well, you're in pain because you want to be mother of the year. Nobody told you to get up this early and make breakfast. It was always to make me seem smaller. But
Mm-hmm.
I cannot speak for other victims and survivors of domestic abuse. I can only speak for myself.
Right.
And what I'm learning today, Shaquia, is a part of why I stayed had a lot to do with my childhood upbringing. That
Mm-hmm.
not having a father in the house, not having that male figure. My brothers were out of the house at an early age, right? And so it was just a lot of women around me. And for
Yeah.
me, I saw a lot of women minimizing themselves and making sure that they were, allowing the man to lead, but no matter what that looked like, right?
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, I learned very on what ghetto love looked like. And to this day, I can't tell you that I'm opposed to it in the sense of, we're coming from the bottom and we're doing this together. Not that you're putting your hands on me and I'm taking that because eventually we're gonna become something. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
that struggle that we going through this together and we have this common goal, right? That resonates with me still today. Not that we have to struggle, but that
Right.
we're coming together from a common place. And so with
Absolutely.
some people, that can be the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the matter of he's the breadwinner.
Yeah.
I don't have a job. I'm getting
Yeah.
SSI. I'm doing this side job.
Yeah.
And the way he's
Yeah.
using that against me is if he goes and reports my side job, then there goes my SSI. If
Mm-hmm.
if I call 911 and I have a
Yeah.
Section 8 or a voucher and I'm living in subsidy, well, there goes my housing,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
if I'm not a legal citizen here and I'm going through this abuse and I call, then where does that leave me? But
Right.
also,
Right.
too, I want to bring in the room the individuals who identify under the LGBTQIA. If
Yeah.
I am not yet outed, if you will, or
Yeah.
known as someone who is gay or a bisexual, and am in an intimate relationship with
Right.
someone who does identify, and this
Yeah.
person is abusive, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be able to call and say this is happening to me because how do I say this is my partner? When
Yeah.
first courts don't recognize us as being in an intimate relationship, and then the stigma and the taboo that comes with it. So
Right.
there's two
Absolutely.
reasons why people stay.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah, you touched on all of them because majority of the clients they is there.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't want to. No, I don't
Mhm,
have anybody else. Or
mhm,
one client I experienced said, well, no, who else is gonna love me?
mhm,
Like that's their form. If you put your hands on me, that means you love me, you care about me.
mhm,
And that's the mindset. So it's so many factors that play into that, and for people that are out there, that is experiencing that,
yeah.
you can overcome. You
That's right.
can, you
That's right.
can, you can live again.
Mhm,
And so tell us about your consulting company, your coaching company. And
mhm.
I mean, you birthed that
Yeah.
out of your
This this
experience.
this this baby came out of struggle, of
Yeah.
trying to be seen and be heard and be recognized. When I say to you the amount of times I've sat in spaces and told my story, it got to a point where certain offices, certain entities would say, we're going to call in an expert because they wanted to see at what point was my story changing? Was I lying? What details was I skipping out? What was I saying? And so I remember having on multiple occasions to tell intimate details of the rapes that I experienced with this individual, the abuse that I experienced with this individual, to the greatest capacity to get them to understand these things really happened. Because at first I was reserved, I was
Mhm.
embarrassed. There was this, people know me as being strong and she's cool and everybody likes her, but they didn't believe that I was going through what I was going through because yes, I was posting the pictures in the matching outfits and we was going out to eat and we was smiling in a lot of pictures. So for a lot of people, it was like, wait a minute, is that really happening? Because the person I know her to be, that can't be true. And
Yeah.
that's the issue is that people have a hard time believing because for Black women, as a
Yeah.
Black woman, and
Yeah.
someone who's always been strong, we're looked at as if no, that couldn't have, it might have happened, but not like what she's saying. I can't see it. You
Yeah.
can't see
Yeah.
it until you've been in my shoes.
Yeah.
And so how I started off again, like I said, was telling my story.
Yeah.
And the way we got into the trainings and the workshops was shout out to City Council at Large, Julia Mejia. A friend
Okay.
of mine had put a call out who sits as our chief of community engagement. Adriana Rains put a call out on Facebook and said, I'm looking for someone to facilitate a training about domestic abuse and its impact on children. I
Mm.
recommended one other individual, and Councilor Mejia recommended me. I had never done a training, if you will, on this issue. And so here I was. God was saying, if it is your calling, I'm gonna keep calling you until you answer. And
Yeah.
so I sat down and put this training together and workshop together and went and did the training. And Adriana was like, wait, so this is you've never done this before? I said, no, this is my first time. And it grew from there. And so that's what got me into doing the workshops and educational pieces around it on a bigger capacity outside of the one-on-one conversations or me speaking on panels, if you will.
Yeah.
And shout out to my team. I have a phenomenal team. I say this to people all the time. One of the proverbs that I live by is, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And
Wow.
so Donald Osgood is our chief of intergovernmental relations. I've known Donald for years. Donald and I went to the same church together. When this stuff was happening to me behind the scenes, before anybody knew Shaquera's story, he knew about the situation, and we would pray and we would talk. And he was one of the people that I would keep abreast in the event that something would happen to me. And so it
Yeah.
was only fitting that he would be a part of the team. Daniel Bateson, attorney Daniel Bateson, who I talked about earlier, he is
Yeah.
our juvenile justice. And so when we get matters relating to individuals, young people who are either the victim, and sometimes the young people who are the abusers in the case, and they're looking for services to, overcome these behaviors, or they want to understand why they do the things that they do, or they're now realizing or sharing verbally to someone that I was a victim at one point too.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us to litigate on behalf of those individuals. Danielle Drummond is our president, phenomenal woman. All of our team, Adriana Rains, chief of community engagement, Cully Geddes is our chief of community partnerships and strategic planning, because we do a lot of mitigating on behalf of policies that directly impact survivors, victims, and families and communities regarding, laws and policies that restrict or constrict us from speaking out and sharing our voices, or it just being safe, a right to be safe and free from abuse. And so shout out to the team for making sure that
Yeah.
we can continue to do the work that we do.
And doing the work that you do, what does that do for you, like on the inside out? You know.
Yeah. I am showing up for what I needed when I was a little girl.
Mm.
I'm making sure, I say this all the time. If anything were to happen to me, Shakira's story would still live. In
Yeah.
every space that I go in, I make sure that I shake that room, baby, and
Yeah.
they remember who I
Yeah.
am. My
Yeah.
7-year-old, who is my Purple Heart baby, can
Mm.
speak to Shakira's story like nobody's business. And so
Wow.
I'm planting seeds in all of my children and anybody that I speak to, not just about what I experience, but about the issue across every spectrum. Because once you have information, you can make informed decisions on what side of this issue you want to be on. And
Yeah.
from what we've gathered, we've gained more support for folks who are either saying, are you hiring? What can I do for free? How can I,
Yeah.
this is a service I have, can I offer? And so I want to make sure that I thank all of those who stand with us in solidarity, from the folks over at Track, Together Rising Above Coercion, in fact, and other agencies, Stuck 617, Follow Suit. We've shared support for Dee Dee's Cry, which is for suicide prevention,
Okay.
and so many others. We're grateful, Laverne Gordon, for your support for survivors when we're looking to seek for safety support. And so we don't do this work alone. We say it all the
Yeah.
time. While the issue could be very much siloed, our mission is to break those silos. And as a Black woman in this industry, if you will, in this work, and I call it industry because it is very much siloed, you
Yeah.
have to literally be comfortable, not
Yeah.
being liked, not being seen, not being supported, being the one that they overlook because you just might do too much when you show up, or you might challenge the status quo. And so I see that quite often. There's a lot of people that hit that like button and the love button, but the support ain't really adding up. And so over the last 6 months since writing my first book, I am really owning the fact that I'm dope in every way, but also too, right, that I put in the work and I belong here. And so with that being said, I didn't get this far by myself. And so I need to make sure that's heard.
Man, yeah. You right on the money. Like you like dead on, spot on. And it doesn't, the work that we do, we put in work, like, because we want to see the outcome. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah. And you have been encouraging me. You send me a quote, I mean, that definitely, and I want to say thank you for that, because it's days where it's like, I don't think this gonna work out, right? But at the same time, I have purpose, and we have purpose in this arena, right? And through this journey. And so it's like, it's gonna help someone,
That's right.
And so that did something to me. I was just like, okay, then we'll speak. Talk your talk then, sis. And I love that.
The
Yeah,
thing about it is again, as Black women, we have been burdened with so many stigmas and social constructs and tabooisms that, we have been birthed this narrative that we have to do it in a struggle capacity. And that's where that imposter syndrome finds its way for us as women of color when we get to a certain level of success in whatever it is that we're doing. And I found myself struggling with survivor's guilt and then realizing, okay, you too had some privileges that, put you in a different bracket in terms of how you survive compared to someone else coming from where you come from. I'm from Dorchester. I'm from a hood in Boston where, high school that I went to, we were told at the time, you won't make it, And so I love when I see people who have gone to the same schools that I went to, the same neighborhoods that I'm from, and not just Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and other areas of the city. And we're really breaking those glass ceilings and whatever it is that we're doing, whether we're entrepreneurs in the makeup business or, the clothing industry, we're really opening doors. And so I say to people all the time, we got to get in the room to make true changes and really show up. But when we get in the room, we can't forget who we are and put our heads down and forget that there's a bigger agenda that is bigger than how we got there. It's more so, how do we leave the door open and add more seats to the table? Because sometimes when we get in these rooms, sis, we're in the room to reach this certain level of performative politics. And so sometimes we get in, but we're constricted and confined to what we can say and what we can do and how we do things. But Shaquera's story separates what we do from others, who do this work, because we don't hold our tongue and we don't fight back. We fight back. One of the things I say to people is, we are the group of folks who go in the trenches. We go wherever we have to go to make sure that we're lifting somebody else up. And so people say, you hear me say that, and they're like, well, what do you mean by that? I've been in places, sis, where I've gone with my son, which I regret to this day, but I would do it again if I had to get a family out of a home. And when I got them out of the home, before we got out of the home, I said to my son, if you see anything happen, if somebody starts shooting anything, you ought to close the door and don't come out. And I always say this to people because sometimes people don't realize the depths that we go to as advocates, survivors turn advocates, because now we coming at it from a different approach. We understand from all angles what this can look like and what it means to somebody else to really show up and really, really be there for them. I'm not doing this for the politics of it. I'm not doing this for the likes and the giggles of it. I don't need you to be my friend. I don't need you to give me flowers or, fake flowers, if you will, to have a conversation. I need to show up and really be a support to the work that we're doing. Absolutely. And so again, over the last 6 months, I've really been paying attention to who are the allies, who are the people who are performing, and who are the people who are really standing with us. And God has been making it very clear where those people stand. And believe me when I say they all serve purpose. Because again, when you tell me I can't do something, we're going to show you 3 times we can do it. We do this work, sis, with no funding. Whatever needs to happen, myself and my team, we pull together and we make it happen. Whether it's making sure families have toiletries and necessities, or making sure someone can get a safe escape or a hotel stay, or making sure they got diapers, or whatever the case may be. We're showing up in those capacities. There's been times where my son and myself, we're taking off our shoes and the clothes off our back to make sure in this moment we can help somebody for what they need right now. And so these are the things that, we don't talk about. But someone said to me, these are the things that people need to know, because sometimes grassroots organizations like us, we don't get that recognition we deserve, because sometimes we're so meek and mild that we don't say certain things. Right. And at the end of the day, I say there's procedure, and then there's practice. We are practicing every day what we talk about on a continuous basis.
Yeah, definitely. Because a lot of people, they talk about it, but they don't really do it. It's not really boots to the ground, like to actually, really getting dirty, getting down at people's level, where they are, what I mean, and raising them up, and a lot of people, like you said, they don't really, they want to get the hand claps, they want to get the applause and the accolades and stuff like that. But it's like, we care about the people, and that's who matters at the end of the day, and so when you're not caught up in that, God makes room to elevate and bring all type of resources. And so I want to say to you, my sister, like, keep going and keep continuing to have boots to the ground, because at the end of the day, you'll be rewarded either way, because God sees us. And the thing is, He knows our heart. He knows where we coming from and how we're moving. And it's not out of selfishness. You want to actually, you care about the people.
That's right.
And that's what makes the difference.
Yeah. We're people first. We're for the people first. Quite a few individuals have said to me, we are the people's advocate. And when I brought it back to my team, I made sure that we were reminded that there's humility in that we can't take that and run with it and put ourselves on a pedestal in the sense of the people gave us that. Y'all said that, we didn't say it.
Yeah.
We're reminded that when we look at this issue from a whole person first, a whole person perspective first, then we can look at all of the social determinants of health. We can look at the root causes. We can look at the mental health. We can look at the environments that these people are living in where these experiences are happening. We can look at the systems around from what's working, what's not working. And we start to make real strategic plans on how to, disrupt these cycles of generational cycles of violence. And so with that being said, we readily have these systems in place. Yeah. There are some stakeholders within our state who, for whatever reason, have overlooked us time and time again. And that's fine. What we have coming in 2024, there's that saying, if you can't beat them, to join them. And so I'm expecting that, our reach in terms of the people sitting beside us and the allies will increase in what they will see us doing, not because we're doing something better than our brother and sister in this work, but because we've created this work with them in mind.
Yeah.
We're looking at what is not happening. Where's the loopholes in all of these, even for us. I'm constantly looking at where could we have increased capacity in terms of where is our mobility, in terms of where we're getting people to the other side of the issue. What's helping us and what's holding us back. And so it's not just, reviewing other programs and saying they're doing that wrong. We're always looking in. And it's not a matter of pointing fingers out. It's a matter of identifying these are the issues as to why this continues to happen. We see all these different people getting all these accolades and all this funding and this and that, but the issue continues to increase.
Yeah.
When we look at it from a micro level, we're seeing that the same programs that are getting this funding and saying that they're fighting the issue is increasing in these same populations. So what does that say? Something about the work to that capacity is not working.
It's not working.
So I always say that when we work as a collective, we have a greater chance at saving 5 lives instead of 1. If you only work in the circle that you're comfortable with, then you can only change the people who look like what you're comfortable with. Like you said, you got to be willing to get with the people who might give you some pushback. I've had clients who call me in the middle of the day, late at night, and they cuss me out because they feel like I didn't answer the phone fast enough. And I have to be comfortable, because I know that sometimes that's their trauma speaking, but other times too, sis, when you show up in a capacity from a whole heart, pure, place, right? And people resonate with that, they start to take that personal. When you
Mhm.
help somebody feel like they belong and
Yep.
they're seen and they're respected and they're supported, regardless to what they look like and what the experiences are, because sometimes they could be the initiators of the issue, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
You really make sure that you're helping people from a safe space. There's this relationship that starts to happen.
Yeah.
When you talk to other advocates, they will say to you, well, you have to put up barriers so that certain things don't happen. Well, where I'm from, I need you to know that I love you and I got your back and I see you. And for
Yeah.
some people, they may say, well, you just crossed a boundary. You made someone feel like this is personal. This work is personal and it's spiritual.
Yeah.
And so our approach, maybe we're gonna pray with you, or maybe we're
Yeah.
gonna be stern with you and really give you the facts of, okay, did you follow through with the things that you set out in terms of your safety plan? And so we just do things a little bit different because we know what it's like. I know what I look like in every room because I've
Yeah.
been through things. And so I say to people, when you've gone through certain things and you can speak to that, and the people, it's going to resonate with the people because you come with a certain charisma. When
Yeah.
you're talking about an issue that's you talking textbook, you're gonna lose a lot of people because
Yeah.
there's no feeling behind
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yes. What reaches the heart. I mean, when your words reach the heart, it makes the difference.
that. That's
And
right.
then afterwards, okay, so what? And it's going to compel them, like, dang, okay,
Mhm.
what you need me to do?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
what do I need to do? Because
yeah,
I need to do some type of
yeah,
changes.
yeah.
And so, yeah, and that's what happened. Yesterday I had did a mental health panel yesterday, and like they came to me, was like, hey, because I was
Mhm,
being honest. And the thing is, people don't like to be honest. They don't like to be transparent. They don't want to be like, I know what that feels like, because everybody want to wear masks. Like, oh, nope, this ain't never happened to me.
yeah,
Shut it down. I don't want nobody to know, right? But it's victory in knowing certain
that's
things
right.
too, because it can set people free by you opening your mouth.
That's
And
right.
so yesterday that happened. They was like, hey, come here, let me talk to you real quick. Is what I said. They was like, I know. I was like, girl, and this is how I talk. I'm
Mhm,
not gonna be like, oh, the psychological, like,
mhm, mhm,
what can I do to change
mhm,
myself, and
mhm.
what can I change on the inside?
That's
And
right.
so that's what makes the difference. That's what makes the difference, that I know it works. And what you
Mhm.
just said, it's just all facts, no caps.
Yeah,
What
that's
as the
right.
kids
That's
say,
right.
no
Yeah.
caps. So what would you say to someone that is experiencing domestic abuse? Because we winding down on time.
Mhm.
Your final words, like, what would you say to them?
To someone who is experiencing domestic abuse, you're not alone. This is not a you issue. There isn't anything that you could do that would warrant someone putting their hands on you, being verbally abusive in any capacity. There's nothing you could do that would warrant that. It is more so. Domestic abuse is an issue that is reliant on the other person, and so it has something to do with whatever is innate in them, whatever they've experienced, whatever their childhood is. These are actions and behaviors that manifest in this way because of something that they've gone through. And not to say that, we're excusing the behavior, but the reality of it is oftentimes those who abuse individuals have at one point in their life been abused to some capacity. And so with that being said, if you are experiencing abuse, there is freedom on the other side. There are people who are willing to listen and really support you. And what I will say is you have to be able to say how you want to be supported,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm not ready to leave yet, but I just want you to listen.
yeah,
I'm going through this right here, and I don't want you to say anything, but I need somebody to know. And so it's a matter of knowing your rights and what you're going to need at the end of it. Should you decide, okay, I do want to leave. Every state looks at it from a different perspective. And so with that being said, we can always be reached out at Shaquera at shakirastory.org or 857-236-7996, because our motto is we are all we got, and you are never ever alone in the situation, no matter what it is. You could have been experiencing 5 years ago, and this conversation could have brought something up that made you feel like, you know what, I need to talk to somebody. We're available. And so the key takeaway is this is not a you thing. And that you're not the only one who is being faced with this issue. And so when we keep it to ourselves and we don't say anything,
Yeah.
that can harm us too. Because
Yeah.
when you leaving for a lot of people, sis, is the most detrimental time in the issue. So at that point, you know, the attempt to leave, the final attempt for some people can be the most detrimental. And so with that being said, it's making sure that folks know what is happening so that in the event that something does happen, we can be able to speak to the issue has been going on for some time or whatever the case may be, but you're not alone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kira, for getting on here and being a vessel, being the advocate, right, for such a time as this, right? And I don't take this moment, this opportunity for granted. I'm really, really grateful for you and for you to sharing your story. And there's other people that may be experiencing this, but they're not alone. And so, yes, but that being said, thank you so much. How can everybody find you? Give us your plugs. How can they find you?
So they can follow us on our Facebook, Shaquera Story, Domestic Violence Consultant and Coaching. Our Instagram is Shaquera Story _DVCC. And again, they can reach me at shakerastory.org, or they can call us at 857-236-7996. Our website is coming soon, so be on the lookout.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody that was tuned in. And I hope this message inspire you and uplift you and let you know that you are not alone. So until next time, I see you guys on next week, another topic, healing, giving you the tea. And I love each and every one of you. You guys have a great one. What you was gonna say?
No, I got a plug for you because I noticed that you have special teas that you sell.
So, I do.
No, wait, we need a story tea that is our signature tea. Listen, I'm putting that in there.
Okay.
Own tea. We can talk about the ingredients later.
Okay. I got you. Yes, we do. We really, really do. We can rock that out. We can rock it out. I promise you. Yes, I definitely. You can go to my website, www.socialworksundaytea.com. I gotta put that plug in. I never put it in, but I need to start doing it. But yeah, so yeah, but we're gonna have to get the story tea. Yeah, that's gonna be dope.
That's gonna be dope. Thank you.
Yes. I'll see you guys until next time.